Hello and welcome back to another episode of the United Front Football Podcast with myself and Mr. Breezy. Wherever you're watching us, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're giving us thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you want to get involved in the discussion. Leave a 5-star rating or whatever you can do on your podcast provider to give us a bit of a boost. Obviously, only if you enjoy it. Like, if you don't enjoy it, I mean, you should still do it anyway, right?
Yeah, like honestly, like one little lie won't hurt anyone. So
yeah, you know, a bit of, big us up, Right, well, we'll start the same way we did last week and probably will do going forward with your Twitter hot takes. Every Monday, we ask you to reply to a tweet that we send out. So it's at United Frontcast on Twitter. Make sure you're giving us a follow. And every Monday, we will ask you for your hot takes and opinions over the weekend. And have you filled your boots this week?
There are some doozies this week.
There's some great, there's some like genuinely good takes and some wild ones, and we encourage both in this pod. So I'll tell you what, I'll let you take the floor first with one that you've seen.
Happily, yeah. This is to do with obviously West Ham's historic, and I'll say historic win against Brighton at the weekend. It comes in from Andy Steen. It says, I think this season Brighton have gone a step too far. After selling their stars, I think they'll tire due to Europe and finish around 12th to 13th at best. Now, obviously, prior to the West Ham game, Brighton had won both of their opening games and scored 4 goals in each. They've obviously been undone by the David Moyes low block masterclass. But like, do feel like it's a step too far to say like the wheels are coming off. Like they're still like we can't just forget the opening 2 games. I know they played like Luton and Wolves, but like I just feel like against other teams this year they'll still blow plenty of teams away this year. I don't know what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, and I've watched a lot of the game. I didn't watch it like minute 1 to minute 90 or minute 98 or whatever it is these days. But from what I saw, it was I still thought they played really well. Like you were taking really good advantage of the space down, like the gap behind Milner at right back, who obviously is about 45 years old now, can't really run anymore. So when they get a bit more depth or players back in that position, they'll be a bit more in control, I guess. But they still made a load of really good chances. I thought another game where Areola has like just played out of his skin. Some unbelievable saves to keep you in the game. Especially it was like 1 and 2 up, like some big saves to keep it there. And then obviously you got your 3rd goal. But even after that, I think he made 2 or 3 really big saves when you were 3-1 up. Like they could have pulled that back. And just like as a little aside, I am so impressed with Evan Ferguson. Like,
oh man, he's brilliant.
Like just some of his touches around the box, his movement, the way he finds space, like is like drag back and hit, like a drag back and shot, and he like just, the header he took, like he could have had a hat trick that game, and I don't think anyone could have gone, oh, he's been lucky there, because it was just some wonderful goalkeeping. But also, like I don't want to take anything away from West Ham. Like defended really well, obviously took the chances. The counter attacks were great. Another goal for Michail Antonio.
I know.
It was. Honestly, the way he hit it was almost a carbon copy of the goal last week. Just like hammered it low into the bottom corner, like really good finish. But again, his like drag back and spin was really good.
It's good. He's 34 and he's finally kicking on to the next level.
started to impress. See. Yeah. But I mean, to go back to the point that Andy was making, is like you say, I think it is a bit soon to be going. They're going to finish 12th. Like you say, they've scored 4 goals in the first 2 games. They've played really well. And yeah, it's going to be a test being in Europe with their lack of experience in it. But they've actually got like a pretty deep squad. They've got a lot of players, and like obviously there's the starting 11 or 12 or 13 that you see most weeks. But scratch beyond that, they've got a load of options up front, a load of options out wide. They've got a ton of midfielders. Maybe defense isn't that stacked. But I think they're going to be fine. Like they're still playing really good football, and like I say, like you said, it was a well-drilled David Moyes like managerial performance.
Yeah,
that was like if you look up a West Ham David Moyes performance, that is the dictionary definition of like soak up pressure, take your chances, like and hope that like a couple of players like your keeper and one of your wingers or one of your attackers has a really good game, and it happened. Really good performance, yeah. And James Ward-Prowse, like running midfield, he looks like he's been there for years. Like he's just steps right into it.
He's been absolutely outstanding. Obviously we'll touch more on this a bit later on the show. But so impressed with Ward-Prowse and the way Moyes has got on playing like so far. Obviously early days, but it's yeah, it looks like I'm going to be eating a very big slice of humble pie if it carries on like this.
Right. Well, I'll go on to the next point where I think there was a lot of comments about Spurs, about things that happened in the Spurs game or like things around Spurs. Andrew, another Andrew, we've got Andy Steen, we've got Andrew, saying Tottenham already look like a really impressive team. If they can get a good striker in, they'll be a serious contender for a top four. Kind of piggybacking off the back of that and then maybe getting in a top striker. Wald McConville's gone, what's the point of Richarlison at Spurs? He doesn't press enough to be useful. He doesn't press enough to be useful, and he seems to be in the way of a potential midfield run whenever Spurs attack. They're far better when Son's up front and have someone else out on the left. Maybe that could be an answer. And kind of, again, on the same point, Sean C. says, Spurs play better without Harry Kane. And as much as they hate to admit it, as a decent shout of challenging for a cup this season if they can get someone who can score 15 to 20 goals. And I think it is good. Oh, sorry.
I was going to say the thing is with that though, like it's so I feel like every club in the Premier League is looking for like a 15 to 20 goal a season striker. But the problem is they're so rare.
Yeah.
It's like if you look at the goal scoring records, obviously pre-Haaland coming in and just destroying everything. But like if you look at the pre-top goal scorer records prior to Haaland coming in, like there ain't many strikers in the Premier League who regularly hit 15 to 20 goals. It's a big ask for anyone, especially when you're looking at someone to replace Harry Kane. I still think that while Spurs they have looked really impressive in the last few games. Like against Brentford, there were signs. I think against United and then again against Bournemouth, they do seem to be getting more and more used to the way Ange wants to play, and they do look a threat. But it's that thing, isn't it? It's like Kane scored like what 28, 30 goals last year.
Yeah.
It's like replacing that is going to be so difficult unless you're spreading the goals out across the rest of the team. If they're able to do that, then maybe it's possible. But on the Richarlison point, like don't get me wrong, it's funny to laugh at him because he's so unlikable. Like he's just like you know. I was watching the game against Bournemouth. And I was genuinely thinking if there was anyone else, I just feel really sorry for him because like I don't even necessarily think he had like a terrible game. It's just that nothing was going for him. Like he was making some pretty decent runs, like he was making himself available and getting into the right areas and stuff. But like there was a moment in the second half, he sort of like he got onto a pass to try and like knock the ball on and run through, and he kind of just like tripped over the ball, and then like it's just like got stuck in the ground.
Yeah. It's like a great ball. He looked like he had a good first touch, and then his second touch was him falling over into the goalkeeper, basically, wasn't it?
And there was another one we missed from like 6 yards out, but it was just a really good save, and it just feels like at the moment there's nothing really going for him. But it also does kind of feel like if he gets that first goal, the rest will probably follow. Like it feels like you see this all the time with strikers who go for a bit of a rut. Once they do eventually break that duck, the goals will start coming a lot more regularly for him. But again, hopefully not, because I can't stress enough. It's so unlikable.
He was the same when he was at Everton, though. Like,
yeah,
I remember United being linked with him about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was like, why are we looking at this guy? I didn't know whether he was a winger or a striker. Like, didn't score, didn't assist. Yeah, he presses hard, but like, you know, you can get anyone to run.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Anyone will run. Like there's other better players out there. But yeah, I can see, you know, if you're a Spurs fan, I can see you hoping that you go for another striker because they paid a lot of money for him, and I have not seen anything near like value in that. It was like 60 million they paid for him, wasn't it? It's a lot of money. 60 million.
60 million. He's being outperformed by much cheaper strikers in the league.
Yeah.
You know, and in terms of Spurs like challenging for Europe and challenging for a cup this year, like I think my advice to Spurs fans, like if I'm taking my West Ham hat off, like my advice to Spurs fans would be like just it's Ange's first season, like just enjoy it, enjoy the football, but just have that patience because there are going to be bumps along the way because it's a very different style of play to what all those players probably used to. So and he's probably still looking for different players that are perfect for that system, and I think there are a few who may not be currently. So I would say enjoy the season. If you can go on a cup run, great. But you know, you're Spurs, so you probably won't. So
yeah,
just enjoy it.
I mean, and that's kind of like something that Keeney says in the tweet as well. He says Gary Neville's the worst punter in Britain, saying that Ange's copying Pep. Ange's been playing that way for years, and it kind of falls into that like how Spurs are playing and how people like it. I kind of get a little bit sick of everyone's copying Pep because they're having a fullback invert. It's like tons of managers have been doing this for years. and Pep's done it years before, but no one kind of like picked up on that because he wasn't doing it in the Prem then. Like obviously, like Bielsa was famous for having his wing backs tucking inside. You've had loads of like defenders and midfielders push up into midfield. It's just because there was such a drastic change with Man City last year and like the change of their results and their stability, and then they went into the treble. He hasn't reinvented the wheel. He's just he's doing something that he's done in the past that tons of other managers have done really well. They just seem to have an incredible team because they've spent over £1 billion on it.
Charges pending.
Yeah. 115 charges. So I kind of get a bit, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like, oh, Man City is shite, but I just this kind of this narrative that is pushed out as like Pep is doing things that have never been seen on a football pitch before. It's like, no, he's not. He's just got a load of mint players, and he's doing something that he's done in the past, that like just with some different players.
I remember Carragher a few weeks ago kind of said like it feels like it's becoming, because they were talking about Trent. And I was talking about Arsenal, like with Partey's role and stuff like that, and they were saying it does seem to be becoming a bit of a trend at the moment, which I do think there is some substance to it. But obviously, it's just like any style of football that is successful. People see it and go, "Oh, maybe we should do that."
Yeah.
So it's like when Klopp came in, more teams started becoming like having more of an emphasis on pressing, and like that sort of like, to use an FM term, like sort of gegenpressing sort of style. And then when Mourinho came in, like loads of people started going to like 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 or whatever. Like it's just the way football goes. Like someone comes in, is successful, other teams try to emulate it.
Remember when it's Pep again, but like when that Barcelona team were just killing people, like death by 1,000 cuts. They're just like ultimate possession, like just trying to do everything. Everyone was trying to do that. I remember like every pundit wanted every team to play like that. It's like, well, there's different tools for different jobs, and obviously like Pep plays a certain way and has done through his entire managerial career. But this isn't like I say, it's not anything new. It's just slight tweaks to things that him and other managers have done in the past. But yeah, it's to go back to it though, like I don't particularly think that Andrew's been copying him either. Like
no.
It's something that he was doing up in Celtic, and like from as far as I'm aware, like obviously I didn't follow his career in Japan or Australia, but like he's always played that way.
Such a plastic.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm such a fake football girl. The thing to bear in mind is like, and we've seen it already in these first few games, he leaves so many gaps at the back, and there is not a lot of very good defenders at Spurs. So whilst there are games where they'll take it away from other teams, like that first half against United could and should have been 2 or 3 goals up, but they just weren't because we're terrible in front of goal at the minute. So, and then they pulled it back with some admittedly really good football and big changes in the second half. But I like the way that Spurs are playing. I like watching them. They're great to watch. But don't think that like they're not going to be on the end of a 4-0 slapping somewhere, because some teams who will work on the transition will just pick them apart.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I God, I hope it's us, but to be confirmed. But yeah, you mentioned United there, and we mentioned obviously I mentioned Liverpool previously, just then with the Trent thing. Obviously, one of probably the most entertaining game of the weekend, or one of, I'd probably say was the most entertaining game of the weekend, was Liverpool versus Newcastle.
Yeah.
One of the big talking points was Virgil van Dijk getting himself sent off in the first half for denying a goal scoring opportunity, or professional foul, whatever it is they call it these days. Got a really interesting reply on this from Omega Luke, obviously big FM creator, big Man United fan. It's coming saying if Bruno Fernandes did the Van Dijk tackle and then verbally abused the officials, social media and sports channels will be creating hour-long documentaries on the incident and be calling the FA to step up to punishment.
Yeah. I mean, like, they kind of would.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't disagree, but like, there is a reason for it, and it's not because it's Man United. Like, it's not like a Man United agenda. It's because Bruno Fernandes is a massive wanker.
Yeah, 100%. Like, there is also the thing of like you find I don't know, maybe it's just because I see a lot more, or I'll read a lot more of the news around these kind of things when it's a United player involved, because I'm a United fan. So obviously, like your eyes are trained to it, your ears are trained to it. But it does feel like whenever there's a big controversial decision that happens in a Man United game, it is, it's 8 hours on TalkSport. It's every tweet that you see from any broadcaster, like, and there is like they'll spend half an hour on Sky Sports talking about it, like every time it happens. But that being said, like obviously the discourse over like refereeing decisions and everything this weekend has been massive. We are going to go into that a bit more later, but at the end of the day, Van Dijk did trip him up as he was running through on goal, didn't touch the ball. Like that is like if you're gonna if that's gonna be a red card, a denial of a goal scoring opportunity, that is a red card. And yeah, like he shouldn't have been on the pitch giving shit to the refs. But as far as I'm aware, we've not heard anything about an investigation into that. That might be forthcoming. So before United fans are out there going, "Oh, this is ridiculous because this would have been blah blah blah." It's like, yeah, like there's been investigations like the Casemiro, grabbing thingy by that Leeds player, and like he got an extended ban. And
or Mitrovic at Old Trafford last year with what he did with the referee.
Exactly, yeah. Like it will be looked at, I'm sure, and especially this year when like any signs of dissension are being yellow cards and stuff. I dare say, like if he'd have reacted like that to, that being given as a penalty or something, he might have seen red anyway because of the way that he was talking to the ref. So I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out in the news and the news media. Obviously, it's been a bank holiday, so that's people have been having time off. I'm sure it'll ramp up over the rest of the week.
It's one of them things as well, though. Like Man United are still, one of the, just in terms of like across the globe on social media and stuff, still one of the most popular and most talks about football clubs on the planet. So it's like if you're a TalkSport or a Sky Sports and stuff, if you do a tweet or a clip or anything about involving Manchester United, it's gonna get retweeted and liked to oblivion. So I think that probably plays part in it as well.
Man United are still clickbait; they're still headline sellers, and and doing stuff like that. Obviously, it gets idiots like me talking about it on a podcast. It's obviously working.
Deary me. Well, there's a tweet here from Redford talking about Man United. But I know we said we talk about the Brighton West Ham game first, so we'll park that tweet and we'll come back to it when talking about the United Forest game because I saw your tweets after the win, and I know you've got some things to say. But if we can, Dan, it's been since Brighton have come to the Premier League, they've played prior to the weekend, played West Ham 12 times, won 6, drew 6. We've never beaten them in the Premier League. Until Saturday, when we finally beat those seagull shagging bastards. I'm so happy. And it's not even personal, but I'm so sick of never beating them. And it's like when we lose narrowly. They always batter us, whether it's Chris Hughton or Graham Potter or De Zerbi. I'm sick of it. And I'm so glad we were able to finally put that to bed and get a win in their own backyard as well. This is also a very great added bonus. But I've got, like you touched on it earlier, I thought we were excellent. Yeah. I thought we were great in terms of what our game plan was and what we set out to do. I thought we executed it absolutely perfectly. Defense was great. Again, the midfield setup was great. Even when Benrahma came on, like he looked bang up for it and actually made a difference. And then you've still got Jared Bowen and Mikel Antonio, just like, especially Mikel Antonio, who like I said earlier, I definitely owe an apology to because he's rolled back the years to like 2020 or wherever it was when we finished 6th. Like he's officially back, like for the foreseeable anyway. It might last like 5 games. He'll go back to being useless again, but it feels like, bear in mind, like people can go back and listen to episode 1, like when we, just before the season started. I was very down on West Ham's chances this season, but
you don't know West Ham's chances every season though. Whenever a speaker's like, we're going to get relegated. It's like you've just been in the Europa League, and like you just finished your top half, and you've got a good team. It's like, no, I think we'll finish 17.
Okay. I had us down bummer, but bear in mind, at that point we were being linked with Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay, so I guess it was probably a reason for it. But no, things are looking really, really positive for West Ham at the moment. I think the big difference is if you look at the transfer window compared to this year, compared to last year. Obviously, I don't know how many of the players that we signed last year, like your likes of Skamaka and people like that, were actual David Moyes signings. I mean, he still signed off on them and played those players, so I think he did have a say in them. But it just feels like the players we're bringing in now are just way more suited to what he wants to do. Obviously, now you can add Mohamed Kudus to that. We obviously had the signing confirmed yesterday, which is potentially. I'm not going to get too carried away because I've been here before where we signed like a hot prospect from Europe. It comes in, we end up selling them for like half the price later on. They go smash it elsewhere. But looking at clips of him play, like I think I've said to you before, like he reminds me of when that period where we had Jesse Lingard on loan, and just having someone who can pick the ball up and run at defenses and actually get us into good counter-attacking situations rather than just hoofing it long and hoping Antonio can hold the ball up. We've actually got someone who can pick the ball up and just go and get us like another 30, 40 yards up the pitch. Like it's a really, really exciting signing.
Yeah, and from what I've seen of him in, playing for Ajax, and what I saw of him in the World Cup as well, I thought he had a really good World Cup. Um, Very exciting player, and I think he fills that gap that you're missing as I assume he's going to be playing off the left. So like he'll be like picking the ball up and carrying it, being like a dynamic player from there. Yeah, and like it's just like you said, just someone who can carry the ball up the pitch rather than trying to just oof it and hope that it sticks, because that is. That's the way it's been done. Obviously, with Paquetá, has been improved that, because he can carry the ball. He's got a really good range of passing, and I think actually like James Ward-Prowse's like range of passing is underrated, and he's always been really mobile and willing to get up and down. But I think having that kind of X factor where people are going to have to double up on him, it'll free up space in other places, and he's a bit of a a maverick. Like, he's quick, he's tricky, like he'll take people on, but he's like strong as well. It could be it could be a really big thing. Just like it's that natural upgrade on Benrahma. Like I think he'll do what Benrahma tries to do, but more consistently and with better end products.
Well, it's interesting. So I looked at because this is the thing a lot of people are discussing, like where he's actually going to fit into this team. Like, there's been talk of he'll play through the middle. Like, so I think he's played pretty much across the front four and even in central midfield for Ajax. Interesting enough, I actually think left wing is the position he's played for the least for Ajax. I think most of it was either up front or in central midfield. But I'm excited by it. That I think it means that it just gives us that flexibility in the sense that we won't necessarily even have set positions in that front four. Like, if you have Kudus, let's say you had Kudus, Antonio, Bowen, and Paquetá, like all four of them could sort of rotate to different areas of the pitch throughout the game and just make it a nightmare for defenders. Because it's like, you're a right back and you've gone up against Kudus for like half an hour, and then Antonio comes over onto that side, you're just thinking, oh, for God's sake, what have I done to deserve this?
There's a lot of legs in it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's exciting, and like he's a great age profile. I think he's like 23. Like, we seemingly got him for a really good price. I think it was like 38, 40 million, which in this market seems like could potentially be really, really good value. And obviously we've got Luton away next Friday, which everyone seems to think is going to be like a banana skin for us. I get why, but like I feel like you can only really believe that if you overlook how bad Luton have looked in their first two games, and just not cut out for the league they are.
They just look lost.
Yeah, I get it, right? First home game of the season, what crowd are going to be up for it, but like, I just and this is the main thing for me. I think my fear I probably would have bought into that had we not picked up like 1 point by opening 3 games. The fact we're sitting on 7 points means we can go into that game with a little bit less pressure on us, and that might probably work in our favour a bit more. We don't have to overthink it and go, well, fuck, we can't beat this slot. We are in trouble. Like, we can kind of just go and maybe take the game to them and see how we get on. Because that's probably my one concern, actually, is like, as good as we look playing this sort of very like low block counter attacking and stuff, we've been here before. It's like, after a while, teams figured us out and just sort of let us have the ball and went, well, go on then, you break us down for a change. And that's where we kind of fell short under Moyes since he's been here. But hopefully with someone like Kudus coming to the club now, that will sort of fix that potential problem.
Yeah, like let's say someone who can commit people, like force them to double up, open up spaces, and obviously, pending investigation, like if how long Paquetá's available for you.
Yeah,
I'm saying that. But yeah, like I said, we'll see how it goes. I think the first 3 games have gone a lot better than you expected, and not just results wise, but performances wise as well. From what I've seen of West Ham, I've been impressed with it so far. But a lot of games to go. Obviously,
absolutely.
We'll see how it shakes out at the end of the season.
One thing I have seen a lot of, I want to say as well, Alvarez looked really, really good on Saturday. Like, his first start, and I thought he slotted in perfectly. I think it just looks like such a great fit to fill in that Rice-shaped hole like in front of the defence. But it's actually something I've seen quite a lot of since the game, where a lot of West Ham fans are basically saying or asking the question is like, well, are we better off without Declan Rice? And it's like, and that we sort of joked about it a couple of episodes back of like, was Rice actually holding us back in the end? And it's like, I'll be interested to get your take on it, but like, I can understand where the questions are coming from, because we were crap last year. Rice is gone. Now we're doing well. First of all, again, you have to kind of ignore the years we finished 6th and 7th where Rice was playing. But people talk about Rice's role and, seem to have it in the idea in their heads that like, well, it was Rice's idea to start playing more as an 8 and going forward and stuff. And like, he's, rather than it being David Moyes' decision, because, he's the manager, he probably decided that, right? Like, I feel like you still could have had a really good midfield with Declan Rice in there. I feel like the main issue is and always probably will be Thomas Souček, just how limited he is as a player. Like, he's got his strengths, obviously. But like, I felt we looked a lot better when he came off, because like I said, Benrahma made such a difference when he came on. So like the idea that like Rice was somehow a problem. Like, again, I find it. I get he's gone to a London club and stuff like that, but I find it baffling that like people can't sort of look at it and go, well, no, we still could have had a really good midfield with him in it. We just didn't drop the guy who should have been dropped. But
yeah, it sounds like that kind of reasoning just seems a lot of like huffing the copium in it. It's like, we didn't need him anyway. Like, it's like, well, no, he's still a wonderful midfielder. Still one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. It's like, and if it was a case of he brought in Alvarez and had Rice and JWP in there, or him and Paquetá, like it'd be a similar dynamic, right? The fact that he was doing so much defensively and offensively kind of showed how much space there was to improve that team. And arguably, I did say this in the first pod, like arguably if you bring in Edson Alvarez and have JWP with Paquetá, like it's arguably a stronger midfield than having Rice and Souček and Paquetá because of the dynamic of it and the kind of players they are. But obviously, like Souček, whilst he's got his, like you say, he's got his uses, he is not a great midfielder. And I think everyone in that midfield that now, especially if you've got like a Mo Kudus in front of them, like being either a 10 or off the wing or whatever, you've got a bit of everything in there. You've got some steel, you've got some like creativity, you've got threats from set pieces, you've got goal threats, you've got ball carriers, like you've got it all there. It's a really well-rounded midfield, and one that is one of the stronger ones in the Premier League because there's a lot of very weak midfields in the Prem.
Yeah, 100%. And I can't wait to win the Europa League, Dan. I'll be honest. That's what I'm looking forward to most of the season. It's going to be great.
So you win the Conference League, win the Europa, next year Champions League, easy.
Yeah, and we've completed the set. We've completed UEFA basically.
Yeah. That's when David Moyes rides off into the sunset.
Yeah,
got all three of them.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we'll move on to the United Forest game. And like it was a 3-2 win. It's been kind of reported as United getting away with it, and it falls into like that tweet you were saying earlier from Red 4. He says United's 2 wins seem to be more outliers than their 1 loss. 3 pretty dire performances that were only got away with because Forest and Wolves were just worse off quality wise. Now in the Wolves game, we were dreadful. Wolves deserved to win that game. They just couldn't finish their chances, and we got a goal. The other games, though, obviously we lost 2-0 to Spurs. First half, I thought we were a better team, created better chances.
Yeah.
If we take our chances, we're 2 or 3 goals up. And I thought we were the stronger side. Obviously, second half, like the Postecoglou made a few changes. Spurs came out. We weren't at the races for a bit. They got a couple of goals, and I'd say like deservedly won. But I don't think a draw in that game would have been, a slight. There was obviously like a lot of mistakes from United, and we didn't look great in that second half. But first half, I thought we were the better team. I think we were creating chances, just not putting them away. And now, like, with this match, where it's being touted as, oh, United held on, or United got away with it, it's like a horror first 4 minutes aside, we were great. Like, I don't know if everyone who's got these opinions actually watched the game. But like, we were creating tons of chances, really good runs, right, really good off-ball movement, like, there was a couple. We should have had a couple of goals. Casemiro misses an open goal from 2 yards. Like, I don't know how that doesn't go in. There's also a wonderful chop down the line by Anthony, who actually had a pretty good game.
He was really good. He was really good.
He was a bit more dynamic. He was going out. He was going in. Obviously, it forced an incredible save from Matt Turner. From that effort from the edge of the box. But there was
God, that was a wonderful shot, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was just settling in the side net.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, just got his fingertip to it. But then there was another one where he kind of jinked out and then jinked down to the byline, cut it back across. Bruno Fernandes from like 4 yards out misses. It's like just trickles past the post. We could have had another 2 or 3 goals in that game, and like that's not even taking in other chances that we had as well. I thought we played really, really well.
I was going to say, just jump in. It just runs my head. You went turn and made that save. Did you hear what the Forest fans started chanting after you made that save?
No.
Going, USA. She's just like, I got that match today. I was like, that is absolutely sensational. I hope that becomes more of a thing. That was great.
I'm big up for that. I'm glad you made that save in that case.
Yeah.
Totally missed that. But yeah, like, it was really, like, both of our wide players, Rashford out on the left, like, just shows why he's better off the left.
He's so good.
Yeah,
like honestly, get him out on the left. He's a different player, isn't he?
I've seen people trying to like pin the first goal that United conceded on him as well. It's like, first of all, like what set piece setup is this where you've got your two wingers sat on the halfway line?
Yeah, I agree.
Wan-Bissaka gets, like, you can see him like trying to shield his eyes. Obviously, loses the ball in the sun, loses the header, and then once Awoniyi's like past them, I don't care how quick you are. Like, he's a massive, very quick guy. Like, and you're expecting your two wingers to be able to defensively shepherd him away from goal. It's like, I'm obviously. That was a catastrophe, but like that isn't on Rashford, and I've seen people try and paint that he had a terrible game because of that. Let's not forget that he played the ball in for the second for the assist. Well, the pre-assist on the second goal, won a penalty, had a load of really good runs, put a couple of balls across the box that should have been finished. Like, he was attacking the byline, he was attacking the goal, he was having good shots, good chances. He looked like, he had his swagger back a bit, and he was making change. And then you get people coming out going, "Oh yeah, he's had another crap game." It's like, he was one of the best players on the pitch. Like I say, some of the people that are having these opinions, I genuinely don't know if they've watched the game or they just saw that United went 2-0 down early on and pulled it back to 3-2, going, "Oh well, they've got away with one." Like, no, we battered them.
It does feel like since the first couple of games, or even just the first game, or even the summer, like, from United fans, it does. Maybe it might not always be United fans as well, but especially online from United fans, there does seem to be a lot of more negativity going into this season. And like, it's not someone I always watch or sort of taking the opinion of that seriously, really. But I was watching a Mark Goldbridge video talking about Mason Mount and saying about the sort of the sentiment online towards the Mount signing, and that the fans aren't really happy with him. And it does just seem that like it's kind of maybe stemmed from that in the summer. And now people just have this sort of negative sort of tinted glasses on it when watching United play. But like I said, I wasn't able to watch the full game. From watching on Match of the Day, I thought United, again, like you say, bar a disastrous opening 5 minutes, like Forest, and maybe some Forest as well, it's kind of sat back and tried to protect it, which I guess you would do when you stood up away at Old Trafford. But United absolutely battered them from minute 4, like 5 onwards until the end of it. Like, Forest weren't in the game really.
I heard the Doom Merchant for. Was it Gary Neville? I think it was. I'm sure it was Gary Neville going, "Oh yeah, well, if they hadn't sat back and kept attacking, they might have scored more goals." It's like, yeah, they didn't. It's like that is the most whataboutery nonsense that I could think. It's like, oh well, if they'd have scored more goals, they would have won the game. It's like, no shit, Gary. Like, you're challenging Michael Owen for shit takes here. Like,
Jesus Christ, Gary, what happened?
Let me qualify this. I'm not sure if it was Gary Neville, but I'm fairly certain it was the Gary Neville pod where he was saying it. I think it was him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying earlier, I think it is just that thing of like, all right, we need some kind of controversial clicks, we need some controversial takes. You know what'll sell? We'll just start slagging off Man United. And you know what? There is actually like a bit of a negative spin just generally around the club at the minute. Obviously, we had the Mason Greenwood nonsense, not nonsense, like the horrible stuff that happened with that, like the issues with transfers, getting transfers in, the takeover that is just going on forever. Like, there is just generally like a gloom over the club at the minute, and hopefully it doesn't affect the players too much, and hopefully they can kind of play it through. But there's a lot of very discontented Man United fans, and I think it is more due to the fiasco of the takeover rather than hating everything about United.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and like, not that it's like super comparable. Like, it's obviously not the exact same situation, but like, you look at the difference it made when Ashley sold up Newcastle, and obviously the new owners came in. Like, just in terms of, like, if you ignore all the off the field stuff, obviously, but like just the sort of relief from Newcastle fans, that the fact that Mike Ashley was gone and it was a new start and stuff, and like, it did feel like this cloud that had been hanging over Newcastle for like 20 years or however long Ashley was there for had just lifted, and it made St James's a much more difficult place to go, because it almost sort of didn't matter how the team were playing. It was just like, well, even if we do get relegated this season, like, Ashley's gone, we'll probably be fine, obviously, with the money they've got and stuff. And I do wonder if that'll be a similar thing with United, where it's like, if, and it is probably more of an if than a when at the moment, because there's so many conflicting reports coming out about the takeover and the Glazers. But if the Glazers do sell, kind of think that will, like I said, will just lift that cloud over the place, and like, it must be difficult for the players, because like, players are like, especially again when it comes to United and like United fans online and stuff. Again, they're one of the biggest clubs in the world. Like, a lot of supporters all around the world and whatnot. Like, and players in the modern day do go on social media and they do look at this sort of stuff. And it must be rough every single week. Like, for Mason Mount, for example, being called a wanker every single week. He's like, just come through the door, or Marcus Rashford getting slagged off for his charity work or something, and it's like, or Bruno seeing me call him a knob. Like, it must affect him. Like, So yeah, I imagine it will be a case of when the takeover, or if the takeover does eventually get resolved, that probably will have an effect. But I also think as well, there's that thing as well from certain section of United fans where like still having those expectations of like, well, no, we should be challenging for the league, and it's like, yeah, but you're probably not quite there yet. But like I think you're on the right track with Ten Hag, and once you get a board that an ownership that can actually properly back him in the window, I know you spent money, but now it's turning into a bit of like, well, we can't buy anyone until we sell, and now look at Kukurea on loan and stuff like this. Like, I feel like if that gets if that gets sorted out again, it's just another step in the right direction.
Yeah, there's obviously going to be like people who have an expectation of challenging for titles and stuff, but I think like for the most part, there's no expectation. It's just frustration of like nearly 20 years of being mismanaged, and like there's always the thing of like, oh well, you weren't complaining when the Glazers winning. When you're winning trophies under the Glazers, like yeah, they were. There's literally a Phoenix club. Yeah. There's always been green and gold protests. There's like people who never wanted this. There is now like this protocol for clubs to never be able to be bought the same way. You can't do leveraged buyouts anymore. Like they have paid more in debt over the period than they have on anything. They have not put a single penny into the club. They've paid more on debt and the money they've taken out than anything. So, the training facilities are all crap. The stadium's falling apart. Yeah, we've spent money on players, but look how well we've recruited. Not well at all. Like for the most part, it has just been a catastrophe. And the fact that we're even like, obviously, I think United will always have that thing of like wanting to push for the title or the top four because of just the juggernaut that it is, and like that'll always be the expectation. In just broader terms, in the football world, rather than even just from United fans. Most United fans I know just want less chaos, less nonsense going on, just smart recruitment, like just bring in decent players and like let this manager who looks like he knows what he's doing manage the team to the end of his ability. And if that's not good enough, then fair enough. But to have like just this scattergun approach of signing players because it feels like they're just the flavor of the month, or the flavor of the year. Like there's no real feeling of like smart recruitment like loads of other teams do, and it's hopefully it's changing. Hopefully that tide is changing. Like we're brought in some good young players. Obviously the transfers last few windows have all fit into the system. It looks like Ten Hag is being allowed to say, I'm not going to use him. He doesn't fit. Get him out. Like you see it with a lot of players who just like they're either on the bench or being told to leave. Like Dean Henderson, who a few years ago was being touted as an England #1, like he's being shipped off to God knows where. Palace, I think. Yeah. So like there's just getting a load of players out, obviously cleared a load of the books with players that have already left, and I hope it just needs that kind of that clear out, that kind of just the sea change needs to be done, and then it's like, okay, now we can kind of step on. Now we can kind of bring the right kinds of players in. And you're saying with Mount before, like I don't get the hate. He's played 2 games. Like he's literally played 2 games for Man United, and everyone's saying £65 million or whatever it was we paid for him is a waste of money. It's like he's a seasoned international, like not even hit the peak of his career. He's 24, I think. Yeah. He's proven multiple times what a good player he is, and he has 2 not bad games, just like games where he doesn't look like he knows where he fits into the system yet.
Well, so that's the thing. He's playing in a dysfunctional midfield.
What a waste of money.
That's the thing. Is I can't really put the blame on Mount because he's in his first 2 games, especially. I look at he's playing in a midfield that wasn't functioning properly, and it's like ultimately that for me that the buck kind of lies with the manager in terms of the role that he's given him. Whereas, but I'm sure Ten Hag's not going to persist with it. If he sees 6 games in, you're still getting completely overrun in midfield. Like, okay, maybe we'll adjust his role somewhat and make it make it more beneficial.
There, by the way.
No. I'm full of them. Sticking on the United game very quickly. Just want to get your quick thoughts. How was the referee, Dan?
Genuinely, I wrote this tweet out a few times and deleted it, and I thought, am I just being reactionary? Because like a few decisions in the first half, a few decisions in the second half, it genuinely might be one of the most consistently bad performances by a referee I've seen in a 90-minute game. Like, obviously, like, terrible decisions here and there, like, will happen, and bad decisions or goals being called off or something. It felt like, like, the entire game, it felt like he was making wrong decisions and poor decisions on everything, like, tackles, like, kind of the way that he's letting the game flow. Obviously, there's, like, the controversial takes on the red card, which I think is harsh, because There's the argument that Bolly could get back, or the keeper was going to get the ball either way. But again, similar to the Van Dijk thing, like if you go in on the actual technical rule, like he was through on goal, he took him out off the ball. Like if that's in the box, it's a penalty. So when it's outside of the box, you kind of like you've given the ref the opportunity to give that decision, and it's more often than not it's going to go that way because. By the letter of the law, that is a red card, and you don't want to see it. I'm not happy that it happened. Obviously, I'm happy that United won the game, but you see it and go, this is just another one of those things where it's like this is like obviously a shit interpretation of the rule that needs to be ironed out. I've seen people like trying to argue that the Rashford penalty thing was soft. Watch it.
Yeah, it wasn't. Like, it was nowhere near as soft as the Schlabber's one the other week.
Exactly. Yeah, like he lunges in, gets nowhere near the ball, puts his thigh across Rashford's thigh and trips him up. Like,
no.
What do you want him to do? Like, it's like he goes down, but he's been tripped up in the box. Of course, he's going to go down. It's just again another long line of like people just looking for a reason to criticize anything that Man United does, and I get it. Loads of people hate Man United because we're a successful team for 20 years, and like everyone hates the person at the top. But we're shit now. Like you don't have to hate us now. but genuinely, like just so many refereeing decisions. The two most egregious ones for me, right? And I know like these are like these. United focus, but because I'm watching it as a United fan, like these things stick in your mind.
Of course.
Number one, he gave Onana a yellow card for time wasting because Onana was waiting for a second ball to be taken off the pitch. Right? There was 2 balls on the pitch, and he yellow carded him for time wasting, and Onana was even saying, "There's another ball on the pitch." So like, if he went over to kick the ball off the pitch, would he have yellowed in then for time wasting to go and get rid of the ball? Would he have yelled in for time wasting because he put the ball back in play when there was 2 balls on the pitch? That's just like, that is insane.
Yeah.
that is madness. And the other one that was almost as egregious, but the thing that's come out of it is, look at Rashford kicking a ball at a ball boy. It's like, he got yellow carded for time wasting or dissent or whatever it was. It's like, no. How about we look 5 seconds earlier where 2 Nottingham Forest players trip each other up and Rashford comes away with the ball and then Forest get a free kick. The worst thing about this is, if you actually watch the clip, the referee is about 10 yards away from it. He is there with the play. He watches it happen. And not only does he give them a free kick, but then he yellow cards Marcus Rashford for kicking the ball away. It's like, I'm understandably pissed off. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, honestly, God, it was that, but just all game. Just terrible decision after terrible decision. And he looked at one point like he just lost complete control of it. He was just yellowing people for no reason, people getting away with things where they should have got a yellow card or even a foul and nothing was given. It was just dreadful. And like, Stuart Atwell's got to have like a week off, I think, next week, because like I say, it was just incompetent, a completely incompetent thing. And I understand that Forest have put in a complaint into the PGMOL about the game. To be honest, I think the decisions, if they're complaining about the red card and the penalty, I don't think they've really got a leg to stand on, unless they're going, look how crap he was for the entire game.
Yeah.
Like, can we have some competent referees, please? Then fair enough, and I'll back them up on it. But yeah,
I almost guarantee that next season the whole yellow card, dissent, time wasting thing is going to be calmed down, because it feels like already referees are just again. I know it's clear. I hear it now in commentary every single game where it's like, oh well, they know the rules. If you're time wasting it, but then it becomes of like, well, what's the referee's interpretation of time wasting?
Yeah,
do you know? It's like we saw the Havertz Tomiyasu thing on the Arsenal game the other week, where it's like Havertz is holding onto the ball for 20 odd seconds, gives it to Tomiyasu, holds onto it for like 8 seconds. Tomiyasu's the one who gets a yellow card. And it's like, well, then how do you let the first instance happen? It's to the point where it's like, you're not essentially booking the wrong guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, there was a dodgy one in like the Liverpool-Newcastle game yesterday as well. Like the Trent one, like we got the initial Trent booking. I thought it was a bit weird. Like, I don't know. That
was weird because it looked like he was throwing the ball back into play.
Exactly.
It was a foul. Or like the throw in. He got fouled, right? Slid off the pitch, and it looked like he threw the ball back onto the pitch.
Yeah.
And he got yellow carded for it. That was weird. I mean, he should have been sent off though, because he was already in a yellow, and then elbowed Anthony Gordon in the face. And actually, another game actually where Anthony Gordon was incredible.
He was good, yeah, and I hate it. I'm hating it. It's becoming a pattern.
We're both in the mud with Anthony Gordon. Neither of us rated him.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think if Trent hadn't have had that first yellow, he'd have got a yellow for that.
See, maybe I need to see the second one. I'll probably need to see the second one again. I feel like the second one looks soft, like in the sense of like it looks to me like he just sort of put his arm across just to sort of, as defenders usually do when they're running beside an attacker, like you just sort of try and nudge him off the ball. Or whatever. It didn't seem to me like he was going for intentional elbow or anything. Similar to the Tomiyasu one actually, where he got his second yellow. Like again, maybe I'm looking at a different angle of it. It didn't seem like he just dragged him, like obviously dragged him down. It was like a slight touch. And IU hits the deck, and then he gets second yellow card. I think
the thing is with those, it's when you're just trying to stop a player do a transition. And to be honest, I'm all for it because the amount of years that you saw Fernandinho getting away with it, Rodri getting away with it, like, and I know I'm just picking on City players there, but like that's the one that you see that they're terrible for. As soon as like a team's on a break, they'll just like it's not even like an egregious foul. Like they'll just either hit them out of the way or like spin them around, like grab them by the shoulder and spin them around, like. I'm happy to see yellow cards for that because it is like that is a professional foul. You're stopping the game in order to not the other team not have an advantage. Where like the reason they have an advantage is because you've made the wrong decision, so you're trying to correct it. So to be honest, in those situations, I'm fine with it. And it was the same with Anthony Gordon. He'd got past Trent. He was like in acres of space, and the boy's quick, right? He's getting away, so he knows like I can shove him off or shove him over. Like that should be a yellow card, but.
That's fair. You know. I wonder if he didn't get the booking just because maybe the referee sort of like after the initial red card thought, I don't know if I made the right decision now.
Yeah. You know what? We'll call that one. Let's swap him over because that'd have been fair. But at least one Liverpool player got a red card. Not that it mattered for anything.
No. Well, speaking of Liverpool Newcastle, I mean, like I said earlier. Probably game of the weekend. I'd probably go as far to say. Yeah. Annoyingly, I didn't get a chance to watch it in full because I was out enjoying the bank holiday weekend and enjoying West Ham at that moment in time being top of the league, so which was good.
Understandable, to be honest.
Yeah. It will never happen again this season. So you got to really seize those opportunities.
I'll remind you of this when it's like March and you're top of the league.
Oh god,
I still think we're going down.
Yeah, I think I'll be too pissed to do the podcast at that point. But like. Looking at because obviously I watched it on Match Today and I saw stuff, and it seemed to me that. So the question I want to put to you is: I don't know if you managed to watch the game in full. Was it a case of Klopp winning it, or did Eddie Howe lose it? In terms of how the game was going,
I'll be honest. I was dipping in and out of the game. I didn't watch the entire thing back. I've watched extended highlights and obviously Match of the Day as well, and it did feel like I don't necessarily think Eddie Howe lost it, but. Newcastle took their foot off the gas, and you can't really quantify for a guy who couldn't hit a barn door last year, firing two identical 0% chances into the bottom corner, like
Mikel Antonio effect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But they were two the unbelievable finishes from Darwin Nunez. Like obviously one of them was a mistake from Botman where it trickled through. The other one was an unbelievable pass from Salah, I think it was.
It was. Yeah.
And they were both arrow bottom corner, perfect finishes and fair play. It just takes a couple of chances to do that. And when you think of the chances that Newcastle missed in the game as well, Newcastle should have been home and dry by that point. With the players that were on initially, and then obviously there was a couple of subs. I thought Barnes had a really good opportunity to play a ball, grab a shot.
God, it was awful.
It was just it was like he saw everything that he could do, and in the time that it took him to decide what he was going to do, there was two players in front of him and he couldn't do anything. You just need to be a bit more instinctive than that. But
it looks to me like he tried to do both options at the same time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He tried to do everything and nothing happened. So yeah, that was awful. Because even if he'd have dragged it back, I think there was someone running to the back post. No one marking. You could just squared it across. But
there was that unbelievable Alisson save as well. I think from Almiron in the first half. Early contender for save of the season. Jesus,
where he palms it up onto the bar, and then a few minutes later from Almiron where he hits the inside of the post.
Yeah.
So like I said, on a different day with a slightly different roll of the dice. Sorry, I've been playing a lot of Baldur's Gate. I'm just a lot of dice rolling. They could have been a couple of goals further ahead, and they hold on to that game. But the fair play to Liverpool and Klopp, the changes that he made, bringing on really effective players. They played like incredibly narrow, got around the ball, and got those couple of chances for Darwin Nunez that, like I say, last year I don't think he finishes either of them, let alone one of them.
No, he has to have a run in the first team now for me. If I'm a Liverpool fan, I want to see Darwin in them because I feel like Liverpool. We touched on this last week where like people were sort of questioning Liverpool and like, you know, because they missed out on Caicedo, the narrative seems to be like they're in some sort of crisis, when in reality they're now 7 points from 3 games. Like, it's a pretty decent start. Like,
oh, don't get me wrong. When they were 1-0 down against Newcastle and down to 10 men, I was banging the Liverpool going down drum. Oh, it's all over. It's like when Klopp leaves, they're going to be fighting out for Europa Conference League spots.
But, yeah, I mean, hey, it's a great competition. Got love that, bloody love that competition. But it does feel like Nunes, like I feel like Liverpool have always in his opening games have looked a little bit undercooked up front. Like in terms of like Diaz and Salah and Jota, or is it Gakpo? Sometimes that they're all quite similar in that sort of style of player. Like, you know, they can play in wide areas, like to cut in, quite diminutive or whatever. I feel like Nunes offers you something just so different, and he's just being an out and out number 9 in those types of games where it is quite tight. If he is able now to sort of consistently hit the back of the net on a regular basis, like that could be the difference to Liverpool in terms of like a 5th or 6th place finish or a 4th or 3rd place finish, you know?
100%. And like, I don't think his actual all-round game was the issue last year.
No.
I like all around, like I said before, like he's just an agent of chaos. Like he causes so many issues for defending teams because of his physicality and his speed and his movement. But he just, like I say, couldn't hit a barn door last year. If he can find just a bit more consistency, not like necessarily finishing every one of those chances like he had at the weekend, but if he can finish the easy chances or like get most of them, like you're looking at a 20-goal-a-year striker who has that intensity, who has that physical presence, who has that energy that you'd think that Klopp would absolutely love to be leading his line. He's like very just kind of all or nothing. He reminds me a bit of like a young Cavani, and I know it's like the easy comparison to make because they're both Uruguayan, but like that, just he's everywhere and he's always like 100%. You know, there's like the kind of striker that I think would flourish at Liverpool, especially when they need a bit more legs. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of like Liverpool's front line, whether Salah does end up going. Obviously, we're recording this on the Monday. The transfer window closes on Friday. Big rumours of massive bids from Saudi, like not only big bids but massive contracts as well. I think it'd make him the highest paid player in the league. I think if you're Liverpool, you've kind of got to go, well, yeah, we'll take the 150 million and reinvest this, because as brilliant as Salah is, like, and he's basically nailed on for 20 goals a year. He's 31. He's just got a massive bumper new contract. And I think that even though he's an unbelievable player, he causes an imbalance in the side because of his lack of defensive effort. When you've already got a right back who struggles, like, and he's playing on the same flank, and I think if you have a different kind of winger out there, even someone that's already at the club, you might have someone who offers a little bit more defensively, someone who offers a little bit more in the press, someone who can be a little bit more of a team player rather than a focal point and like just doing that kind of messy thing of walking around until he gets a chance to play a ball through or score a goal. It might be better for the team, and it might offer a little bit more stability to allow Trent to be a little bit more creative, to step a little bit further up. And like I say, he's 31 going on 32. Like, he's in the peak of his career, but how long is he going to be, shining bright at this age? And 150 million for a guy that you're paying the world to, like, it has broken the, like, all the pay structures at Liverpool for. Maybe, like, it's a really good opportunity to go, maybe we should have sold him when we could have done a couple of years ago, but now this is time to re-roll the dice again. The dice, but like to have a go at that again and see what we could do with it, because I think there's players there that can and will do a really good job on that right-hand side. Obviously, there's Diego Jota, who came off the bench and looks like his old self again, who can play anywhere across the front three. Darwin Nunez can play over there. I dare say Luis Diaz could do a similar thing on the different flank.
Harvey Elliott as well.
Yeah, Harvey Elliott, who can play out wide and do that kind of cutting inside creative thing there as well. And yeah, they've just got a ton under the Dutch lad as well, whose name's
Gakpo.
Gakpo, who can again play anywhere across the front three. And I think you've got a ton of options there to even go, all right, well, we can just use this to strengthen the other parts of the pitch that aren't as good. It's a big call, but
I can see.
I don't
feel
see
like
him not going through because of the money that he's being offered. I can see him.
Yeah.
I can see him pushing it.
Yeah, I feel like at this stage in the window, I feel like I know you get a load of money for him and stuff. I just don't know who the hell they can go and get to replace Salah. I feel like that's something you need to replace someone of Salah's quality. I feel like you need almost like a bit of a run up to it. Like you need like to know 6 months out that he's probably going to go, rather than like almost like how we've seen they've been in with like the Henderson with losing Henderson for Fabinho, like I said before. But that was always part of the plan that eventually can get moved on. This was probably going to be the last season Henderson and Fabinho were there, but they end up moving on a year early, and now Liverpool end up being massively underprepared and have struggled to bring in a six. Obviously, they brought in Endo, but no one really knows how that's going to go this season. And you know, just on reputation, it's a step down from Henderson and Fabinho. I think if you were to sell him even today or even on deadline day, like the pressure on FSG to go out and find someone that is almost, and it's difficult finding guarantees in the transfer market as it is, to try and find someone who's going to step in and do the Salah job, or try and, again, it's like going back to what we said about Harry Kane, trying to bring in those goals back into the team. Me personally, I was almost on stream the other week, like I understand the money, the financial side of it, but I just think in terms of what it could mean for your season, for the Liverpool season, I just don't think it's, I don't think it's worth. I think it's, if anything, it's worth more keeping him than getting 150 million quid. Do you know what I mean?
I think the perfect comparison is Harry Kane, right? Like we saw this week earlier, someone saying play better without a Harry Kane. I've heard it argued in the past that Spurs played better without Harry Kane as a unit, because he was always the focal point. Everything went through him. And I wonder whether it is the same with Salah. Like it could be a thing of, yeah, you're obviously losing it. Don't take this as me not thinking Salah's a good player, because he is obviously unbelievable footballer, and has been consistently in the entire time he's been at Liverpool and previous, to be fair. But for a player that is kind of is approaching the end of his peak, a player that is massively valued to you, but also doesn't offer the energy that it seems like everyone else on the pitch is expected to give. Yeah, you're losing 20 goals a year, but could a tweak mean that as a unit they are better? Like, it's always a case that a team is always better than an individual, and obviously he's played his part as an individual in that team. But it always felt like previously, when Liverpool were really on the front foot and playing really well, he was a part of that pressing unit, the always running, always covering, all that kind of thing. Whereas the last year, 18 months, it's felt he's hanging around up front waiting for his chance. And I don't know whether that's a tactical thing that Klopp's asked him to do, or whether it's to try and maintain his level at his age for a little bit longer. Because like there's a lot of players that do that. Because Messi always used to be, right in with the press. Like everyone in that Barcelona team was a high press merchant. Same with Ronaldo. Like, yeah, he wasn't a pressing merchant, but he'd run all day and he'd do everything. Whereas later in the career, to kind of prolong their legs and their effectiveness, like, do a little bit less. You don't run for 80% of the game, you run for 60. Like, and I wonder whether allowing that to go and either bringing in some reinforcements, or allowing the players that are already at the club to do that, could be the best thing for the team.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, like I say, it all depends on whether Salah pushes for that move or not. So the salary's being offered, you wouldn't blame him for pushing for it, I suppose, because it is a astronomical, silly amount of money, really. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Like, deadline day usually throws up some like unexpected or like dramatic sort of storylines, and I do wonder if that's going to be it for this. That's going to be the one for this year. Is like if because it realistically, if he stays, I know the Saudi transfer window shuts later than the Premier League one, but like Liverpool absolutely won't sell him. Like, if it's after the Premier League transfer window, but it'll be interesting to see if they make a real solid push for him on deadline day or towards the end of the window.
I think more than anything, like, this transfer window has been that as well. Like, because of the Saudi investment.
Yeah,
like, it's been the most chaotic, and just the fees being thrown around, more the wages than the fees. I've said like I said in the past, but this would be one of those ones where it's like, okay, now you're starting to take world-class players still in their prime, and like there's that just shows it's like there is no it costs too much. It's like, how much does it cost? Write the number on this check.
Yeah,
get him in. Like, and it's going to be an interesting few years. This is like, especially if they carry on this kind of strategy of just blowing everyone out of the water with wages. And I know, like, it's quite ironic that as a fan of a Premier League team, saying, "Oh well, no one can afford to stick with the wages being offered in Saudi." But at the same time, it's like, well, it was done differently in the Premier League. Obviously, now it is the juggernaut it is, but at periods over the last 30 years, Italy's been bigger. Spain's been bigger. They've been offering big wages. Germany's always been like offering really good wages, especially at the big.
It's only really since the TV deal came in that Premier League sort of had that financial advantage over everyone else.
Exactly, and like the reason that. I dare say, if the whole Calciopoli thing hadn't have happened in Italy, they'd be in the same position that the Premier League are, because that was the biggest league. All the best players were in Italy. All the best teams were in Italy. Everybody wanted to beat the Italian teams in the Champions League, be it one of the Milan teams or Juve or whoever. Like, that was always the aim, like to be as good as them. Calciopoli happened. It all kind of fell out. The funding fell through because the trust fell out. Like the people stopped going watching the matches, and the Premier League picked it up and ran with it, and this is where we are at the minute. So, if something goes down another path, the butterfly's wing flaps a different way, and like you've got the Premier League money in Italy, and you'd be having the same discussion. But it feels different with the Saudi League because it is obviously a massive sovereign fund where they've just gone, throw this at whatever you need. We want to make this the biggest thing rather than a product that is bringing money back in because the product's so good. It is here's a blank check, just make things happen. So I don't know. It's going to be really weird, and I think it's just going to have far-reaching impact on football for a long time, regardless of what other leagues do, and especially with things like the Benzema situation and like the Jota situation, where it looks like he's being farmed out a month after he's joined because he's not a big enough name. And it's like, it's kind of showing itself to be this very vapid, just money driven, pony show, which obviously football is, but to see it in that light, I think it's going to really open a lot of people's eyes and, like I say, have long reaching impacts on football.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes in the next sort of 5 to 10 years. It's going to be hard one to call, but we'll watch with interest. We were going to talk about some of the other games over the weekend, but I think it was a really interesting conversation, that, so I don't mind skipping over them for that, really. If you want to TLDR, Arsenal, you'll be fine. Stop panicking. Everton, you're in trouble.
Learn to kick the ball in the goal, and you might be all right.
Christ almighty, yeah. I was watching Soccer Saturday, and it got 87 minutes. It was like, I was going to go Goodison, Wolves have scored. So I just tweeted, Jesus Christ, Everton. I'm not an Everton fan. I'm depressed by your club, but I can't imagine how they feel. One thing, speaking of Soccer Saturday, one thing I feel like we need to talk about. We spoke about referees earlier. Mike Dean, who obviously is, despite being retired for a few months now, still managed to make it all about himself, much like he did when he was a referee. Went on the Simon Jordan podcast recently. It spoke about the infamous Chelsea-Tottenham game from last season where Tuchel and Conte had a big old scrap at the end of the game. Prime Barclays, as far as I'm concerned.
Just on that, I can't believe that was last season. That feels like it's 6 years ago. It's because obviously throughout that season, like Chelsea had about 6 different managers throughout that same season. And the World Cup in the middle of it all as well.
World Cup in the middle of it. And Conte with his massive meltdown halfway through, which was also spectacular. But so Mike Dean goes on Simon Jordan's podcast and obviously retells that story and basically says there was an incident where Marco Correa gets his hair pulled by a Tottenham player. And then obviously, I believe not long afterwards, Tottenham go and equalise and the game finishes 2-2. Mike Dean then goes on to say that, he admits he should have called Anthony Taylor over to the screen to look at it, but didn't want to do so because he wanted to basically protect his mate, is essentially what he said. Since then, he's gone on Soccer Saturday, where he is the new Peter Walton, essentially, but somehow a more irritating version.
Yeah, somehow managed to get rid of Peter Walton and get the only person that could be worse.
It's really impressive. It really is. He has since clarified, and this is the thing that bugs me about it, because I watched the full debate today. And he's basically trying to sort of play it down. He says I said mate, but it's in the way that you would sort of refer to another player as like a teammate. I didn't mean that in terms of whether I get on with them or not. It's like, and he was like, if I'd have said colleague, it wouldn't have been such a big story. And basically the whole mate comments now turned into a massive farce, and people were like, the media are just like running with it, making it bigger than it is. And it's like completely missing the point of like what he essentially admitted to was, I chose not to send the referee to go to a screen for a violent incident. Well, I say violent, but you know what I mean, like a violent conduct incident on a football pitch that could have had massive ramifications for that particular match, which again calls into the question, what the fuck's the point of VAR then? Like, if you're going to have emotion play into it, or how much you like someone or whatever, like, I read the full quotes from the Simon Jordan podcast. I could not believe what I was reading.
Yeah, it was. And the thing is, like, in trying to defend himself, he really ham-fistedly, like, fumbled over everything that he was saying and somehow made it sound worse. Like, so, like, if it was a case of, like, oh, I was protecting my mate, it's like, well, and if you just double down and gone, yeah, like, it was a hell of a game, and I didn't want it to look like he was, not able to do the thing, to make the right decision. So like I didn't send him over because I looked at it and thought there was nothing to be seen. Like then fair enough, but like he's kind of like ham-fistedly gone over it and made everything sound even worse. But I think the takeaway from it is like you say, what's the point in VAR if you're not going to use it to make the correct decision rather than the emotional one? Yeah. That's what it's supposed to be there to protect. If a referee misses something or a referee gets distracted or taken away from it, it doesn't matter if he's had a bad game. I'd rather see the referee go over and make the correct, or be given the tools to be able to make the correct decision. Like every time, I'd rather see that, and that's my frustration with VAR this year a little bit as well. Like, whilst I appreciate we don't want to re-referee the games attitude, like we just want to use it as a tool for egregious decisions or things that have been missed. It's like, well, what's the point then? What's the point of VAR? What's the point in having a screen at the side of the pitch? If the referee's made a wrong decision, let them make the right decision, inform them, give them the tools to do the job. Referees already do, I was going to say a hard enough job. Referees already do a bad enough job on their own. Let's help them make a right decision because they seem incapable of doing it in real time anyway. So.
The thing is, I would have had more understanding with him had it, and not that I would have agreed with it, and I still would have had the thought of like, well, you still shouldn't have done it. But even if he went out with the angle of like, it's Anthony Taylor, Chelsea fans absolutely despise Anthony Taylor to the point where they are convinced he's got this weird agenda against their club, like to the point where like Thomas Tuchel was spoken about in press conferences and like a petition went round and stuff. Like, I almost would have understood it if it had gone like, he already gets enough grief. I did, like, you know, I didn't want to give Chelsea fans another reason to, like, to pile on, whatever. Still wouldn't agree with it, but I could have understood it more. But just a bit sort of be like, I didn't want to send him there because it was a difficult game for him, and he already had a lot to do. So I thought, you know, I'm essentially not going to bother him with this one. And it's like, that's not your call. And I know that he spoke about like he never actually enjoyed doing the VAR stuff, and like there's this whole thing of like he was petrified going into to be a VAR because he didn't want to have to deal with those decisions and stuff. But then it's like, I don't know, like does it come down to Zaffa and the PGMOL to provide better training or provide better guidelines or whatever for people who are using it? I like the fact that we are still, I think I touched on this in the last podcast, we're like how many years into VAR now? Like 4 or 5 years? Like, and some referees aren't comfortable using it, and the system is still being tweaked on a seasonal basis to the point where it just continuously feels like it's an absolute mess. But yeah. I cannot believe that he went on and basically told that story, and hearing him talk about it on Soccer Saturday, he almost feels like there was nothing really wrong with what he says. Like, oh, I know what I did was wrong, but you listen to him talk about it, and it's like, yeah, but do you actually get why this is a problem? And it doesn't really seem like he does.
Yeah, I kind of I'm on his side where it's like people seem to be obsessed with the protecting my mate thing. It's like everyone seems to be like hyper focusing on that thing, and you even saw it with what's the host's name on Soccer Saturday? It's just completely escaped me.
Simon Thomas.
Yeah. And he kept like leading it with, you kept seeing your mate, and he was like leading with it and like really hammering it home. And he's like, that's not that isn't the point. Like, yeah. And he was trying to defend himself from like, it's not a mate, it's a colleague. But it's like, no, they're both missing the point of this. Like you say, it's about why aren't referees being given the chance to make correct decisions? Why are you putting emotion into it? Why is this even a thing? And like the fact that you've come out and admitted that this is how it happens in a VAR booth is why why nobody trusts the VAR. It's why it's having such a hard time to do it. Let matches be re-refereed. Like, give referees the tools to do the job. Nobody likes seeing massive breaks, but if that's what it takes to get the right decision, then do it. Like, like, because I dare say, like, maybe the red card for Forest wouldn't have been. Was it Joe Worrell? Like that probably that might have been overturned, but give him a chance to have a look at it again, rather than in the first instance. The Van Dijk challenge. You've obviously got the Alexis challenge from last week.
Yeah,
like let referees have another look at it, because obviously in the the speed of the game, you might make a decision and go, make a decision that is incorrect. And I think all of those maybe wouldn't have been overturned, but would possibly had a chance of being overturned. So allow referees to make that decision. It doesn't, and as much crap as referees get, like, if it takes a little bit longer to get the right decision, people will say, "Oh, well, he should have got it right in the first place." Well, yeah, but they got it right in the end, and that's what matters.
Yeah,
that's what the decision makes. Like, it might not affect the game in the end. Some of these decisions anyway. Like, obviously, the Liverpool game with Van Dijk being sent off, they won the game anyway.
Yeah,
but it took away from the game, and now he's going to be unavailable unless it gets overturned and things like that. So, yeah, just like give referees the tools to do their job properly, and make rules that make sense. Just like, the amount of confusing rules and confusing decisions, like handballs and fouls in the air and fouls, like the handball ones, like, still nobody knows. No. Is it when it hits the hand? Like, what's a natural position? Like, you saw the penalty at the week. Which penalty? The Man City penalty. It's like he's diving in. That's from 2 yards away. Why is that a penalty and not the Romero one against United? Why is like? Well, there was
one in the West Ham Brighton game. Soufal slides in to block a cross. His arms, like, the arm he plants to sort of stop, to break his foot. It hits that arm. It didn't get given. But it's like, I think you touched on it the other week. The commentator said the same thing. It's like Lewis Dunk got done for that exact same thing on like on game week 1. So again, it's that thing of like, how are you getting? Like, people talk about consistency, and I think it's that thing of just like, you want to see the penalties or these infringements awarded, and you can look at the individual clips and say, oh, okay, we're seeing a pattern here of why they're getting awarded. But when it's like you're seeing different clips from different games, it's like, well, hang on, like you say, that was given, but that one wasn't given, and it's why fans get so annoyed with it, because you can almost excuse inconsistency without VAR because it's different referees and the speed of the game and all this sort of stuff. It happens. But with the technology in place, like, that should have been brought in to eliminate the inconsistencies, if anything. And like you say, it's become even more confusing.
Yeah, I maintain that I think VAR in its kind of idea is a good thing. Like, if it was used properly, if it was used in the right way, it would be a good thing. It's like, but like you just said, it's just making it more contrived and more confusing now. So referees are being allowed to make bad mistakes without being given the opportunity to correct them. So what's the point of it? Like, at the end of the day, what is the point of it? If you're not going to re-referee decisions, then what is the point of it? If you're not going to do that, then get rid of it. Or just use it. Use it in a goal instance. Double check they weren't offside. There you go. Or like I say, in egregious instances where someone's punched someone and the ref hasn't seen it. Like, just have that. Rather than like having this whole thing of like, oh, VAR's checking it, VAR's checking it, VAR's checking it. It's like, no, well, just get rid of it.
It would make life a lot easier. And that's the mad thing. It's like, this is episode 4 of the podcast. We're like three games into the season. It feels like we're talking about VAR every single week at the moment. It's just like, it's going to be a long old year.
And I also wonder, like, and this is a discussion that I've had on stream in the past, like, I wonder whether it will take a new generation of referees to come through for it to actually be used properly. Because what you've got at the minute is a load of referees who are so used to have, like, their entire refereeing career, they've been, refereeing the match entirely. Like, they've been, been trained to make certain decisions, look for certain things in games. Now they're having their, like, there's a bit of a defense to referees.
Of course.
Like, they're having the rules change all the time, what they can give, what they can't give, what they should give, what they shouldn't give. Like, what's a handball, what's a foul, what's a what. Like, when do we give a yellow card, which is, what's dissent, what's time wasting, what's this, what's that. And you're changing the landscape of the decisions they have to make all the time. So yeah, of course there's going to be poor decisions. And maybe it is a case of referees need to get paid more, train more. Like, there needs to be a full-time thing where they go like a footballer and they'll train 6 hours a day. They'll go over refereeing decisions and all this kind of stuff. Pay them more money. If you want better refereeing decisions, pay them more money. Like, fund it properly. Have them all operate out of a single. Like, everyone goes to a central refereeing place of work throughout the week, and then they just travel to where they need to go. Like, just do it that way then. Like,
I think as well.
Compensate them. Like,
yeah, and I think as well. I spoke about this on stream before as well. I think we need to stop doing this thing of like, if you want to be a referee, you have to go through like the sort of Sunday league system and sort of work your way up, because that's causing more damage than harm, more harm than good in itself. Because again, the statistics are there of like how many referees drop out of it because of the amount of crap they have to take off, like, you know, some fucking fat bloke on the sidelines who thinks he's like Ray Winston or whatever, and giving them dogs. I don't know why I went for Ray Winston there. Sorry, Ray, if you're listening, but like, you know what I mean. Like, give it, like, you hear all these horror stories of like from players and from parents and from coaches and stuff, and it makes them not want to carry on with it anymore. I've always said it. If anything, it makes more sense. If you're going to bring referees through, have them come through and this may be something they do anyway, but have them come through the youth system. There's like, you start off managing like the U18 leagues, then the under 21s, 23s, and then you can work your way up to sort of the professional setting. Because at least then you can also teach. It's on the coaches of the academies to teach their players of how to interact with referees during the game, and they then set an example so that eventually in future players will be better behaved in terms of dealing with referees and stuff. It's like, I'm sure it's not like a foolproof system. There'll be issues with that, but I certainly think it's a better way of doing it than just expecting people to put up with the crap they get on a Sunday league pitch just because, you know, they love doing what they do in. Yeah. When really you can impact the game as a whole by doing it that way.
Yeah, and like I say, like, fund it properly. Like, you've got youth academies, you've got, you know, national academies. Have a referees academy. Like, fund it properly. Get people who are young and want to be in football but aren't a player. Maybe even like players with an injury or players who haven't made the cut at academies and don't want to go down going through the, you know, the lower leagues route. Like, I think, okay, but I love football. I've got a lot of experience in it. I could turn my hand to doing this. Yeah. Like, and the whole thing of like ex-players can't be referees doesn't make sense to me as well. Like, surely a person like an ex-pro who has got, say, 10, 15, 20 years of playing the sport and seeing what it's like on a pitch and knowing decisions will have a better idea than someone that has never been in that situation. So I don't understand it. And I wonder how many ex-players would go into it. Obviously, I think it'd be more like players either out of like lower league or in the
absolutely,
like, you know, in the League 2, League 1 system, like wanting to prolong their football career, like, or career in football, rather than, you know, Lionel Messi. But like, I wonder how many. That'd be fantastic. Like, telling them where to kick the ball for a free kick and stuff. Like,
you have Messi ref in it. You have like Xavi and Iniesta as your linesman as well. That'd be fantastic.
Busquets in VAR.
Yeah. Okay, solid thing we just said. Let's make that happen. Yeah. That's what I want to see.
I think the MLS are going to try it.
Yeah, to be fair, they're not far off, are they? Bloody hell. We had Mike Dean down as our awful pundit take of the week because he was technically a pundit on Soccer Saturday, but I do have to give a special mention to Jamie Carragher for just being unashamedly biased for Liverpool when talking about the Van Dijk red card. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the time he is quite good at hiding it, but for this one, when he was sitting there being like, but we don't know if Isaac was going to score, so how can you say it was a goal scoring opportunity? And Shay Given's like, well, yeah, we don't know because Van Dijk kicked him. Yeah. So that's kind of the point. And I was watching it, and it's just them two going, yeah, but you don't know he would have scored. Yeah, I know he wouldn't. That's why he's been sent off. It was just his back and forth. I'm just like, oh, for crying out loud. Like, how are we here?
Yeah.
But yeah, Jamie Carragher, ladies and gentlemen. I used to like Carragher and Neville quite a lot a few years ago. They're losing me over the last couple of seasons. They really are.
Yeah, like their exuberance is gone. Their youthful exuberance is gone. And it's I feel like their true colours are showing a lot more. Where it's like there is always a lot of real kind of pro Liverpool bias and agenda. I mean, it feels like every other bloody pundit in football or every other like radio host is a Liverpool fan or an ex-Liverpool player. I don't know what's going on. Feels like there's just more ex-Liverpool players in punditry than any other team. I know there's a lot of United ones, but I think the thing is, and Gary Neville is like the center point for this, like the center point of the universe for this, for just being miserable about United all the time. And honest to God, it does my head in. It does my head in when he kind of plays down how good he was, because he was a wonderful player. It's like, I was just lucky to be in that team. It's like, no, you were one of the best right backs in the world. it does my head in when he does that. It does my head in when every bloody ex-United player is just whinging all the time about Man United. It's like, look, we just need to accept the fact that it isn't the 90s anymore. Alex Ferguson's not in charge, and you can't buy Andy Cole for £4 million. Like,
No.
you know, you just get over it. Like
I mean, you say that they're giving Johnny Evans a contract. They might do.
I mean,
they might give Andy Cole a call.
You never know. You never know. But it's yeah, the times change. Liverpool had their era of dominance in the 80s, and Leeds had it in the 70s, and you know it comes and goes, and maybe United will get back there. Who knows? But it's a very different landscape right now. There's much more. There's many more challenges and other big clubs, and obviously other funding sources. 115 charges, but it makes it difficult to challenge for titles. So.
Yeah, one of my favourite Neville moments ever though is when I think it was Souness was saying like, United's been beaten, and Souness turns around and says something like, "Oh, you know, I can't really put too much blame on the Glazers." And you see Neville go, "Oh, for God's sake!" It's just like that is a defeated man right there. It's so funny. Yeah. But yeah. Not like I said, not the same charms they used to have, unfortunately. I figured before we wrap up for today, Dan, we sort of teased this last week. We're gonna test trial a new segment for the podcast.
Oh yeah.
Called Tales from the Terraces. So what we did after last episode drops, working with them, messaging in both our respective Discord servers, asking you guys, the listeners, to send in, all the viewers, depending on where how you're consuming this, to send in a funny story or any sort of funny anecdotes from your time of going over to watch the football. It could be whether it's your story or
servers, by the way, through our personal Twitter handles.
Yes, you can.
Big Meaty and at _BreezyFM.
Everywhere. So yeah, you're easy to find. You got no excuses really. It's all linked up. So I did this in my Discord. I had a great entry from Dan, or FFC Dan as he's known in my Twitch chat. So he's obviously a Fulham fan. And he sent me one. This did get a chuckle out of me. So he's a Fulham season ticket holder as well, bears in mind. So during another woeful Dan James cameo at Fulham versus Southampton last year, I got so frustrated with his incessant, seemingly apparent desire to play like a speedboat with no driver that I shouted out, "Of course he's rubbish. He's Welsh."
He's quite the wordsmith.
Which is all great in itself. Little did I realise the two blokes sat in front of me were Wales fans who go home and away, whose strong accents made Rob Brydon sound Cockney. If looks could kill. Dan James actually went on to win us a penalty, much to my displeasure, which Alexander Mitrovic obviously missed. The two Welsh fans, the two Welsh fans have never been seen at a game since.
Oh. Well,
which, yeah, shout out to Dan James.
You know, I don't know. Obviously, I've having watched a lot of Dan James, the speedboat without a driver is about as apt a description as I can think of him. He plays like a pig on fire. Like he just runs 100 miles an hour everywhere, like with no idea what he's gonna do. It's like you know what it is. It's a dog that chases a car, right? He doesn't know why he chases it. He doesn't know what he's gonna do when he gets to the car. All he knows is he just has to run. That's all he knows. That's the thing. It's like, and if he ever gets himself in a situation where he has the ball, he's run away from someone, and he's in a either has to make a decision to shoot or cross, he looks like he doesn't know what to do. Because he never thought, I never thought I'd be in this situation. I can't believe this has paid off.
Oh, dearly me.
Oh,
he's a very funny footballer, is Dan James. But yeah, so thank you very much to Dan for sending that in. That was great. And obviously, if you guys want to send in your submissions for Tales from the Terraces, we can put this out on Twitter as well. We'll come up with like an email system if you want to email in, so we can keep the reactions genuine. Because Dan hadn't heard that story before I just read it out there. So yeah, maybe you can email in or something. But we'll figure out. But if you want to get your submissions in, like I said, do it on Discord or via other ways of doing it. And we'll pick out some good ones and read them out on the show.
Actually, yeah, the best way to probably do it is through our Discords, because then if you want me to read a story to Breezy, you can send it to my Discord. If you want Breezy to read one to me, and we can kind of like we'll try to not look at each other's Discords too much. And keep it. You know, maybe I'll create another channel for it. But terrific. That's great, and I like that. Yeah, so keep those coming in. Those stories, your tales from the terraces. But I think that is what we'll leave it on there for today. Another another episode where we plan on recording for an hour, and it's now nearly 1 minute 25. So
action packed this
oh,
weekend.
yeah. I mean, a lot happened, and obviously it's going to be an incredibly quiet weekend with the transfer window closing. So I'm sure the next episode will be incredibly quiet.
It's fine. When Luton inevitably beat West Ham 3-0 at Kenilworth Road, there'll be a lot to talk about. So
oh, yeah. I mean, we
can't wait for that.
I'm sure we'll just skirt over that very quickly.
Yeah, if we could, that'd be great.
But as always, guys, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribing if you are new to the channels. Make sure you're following on whatever platforms that we can. Obviously, at United Frontcast on all social medias, be it video or Twitter, X, whatever the hell it's called these days. And our personal ones, as I said before, at Big Meaty and at M_BreezyFM. Give us a follow on all those to keep up to date with all of our happenings. But yeah, that's going to be it from us for this week. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye.